Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 2005 Buick LeSabre Custom. Up front is a 3.8 liter V6, and down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this Buick LeSabre because I have not reviewed this generation before. This, at a time, was the most popular American full-size sedan during its run in the early 2000s. And so this is the final model year, 2005. They then switched over to the Buick Lucerne that we'll talk about. So here is one of Buick's best. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you would like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month, as well as there's exclusive audio content. But let's get back to that 3.8 liter V6, better known as the 3800. Better known as the 3800 Series 2. This will go down as one of Buick's best creations ever. The 3.8 liter is an incredibly stout, incredibly reliable engine. Now, it made just a touch over 200 horsepower, so it wasn't a numbers engine by any means, but they're reliable, they're easy to find parts for, they're easy to work on, and they're just such a well-built, well-designed engine that it really, truly deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And that is the only engine that this vehicle was offered with. There wasn't any other option. Similarly, there wasn't any other option for the 4-speed automatic. That was the only option you got. This was less reliable than the engine itself. There were some transmission issues, but they're a dime a dozen, and honestly, if the car's in good shape, it's well worth chucking another transmission into. Last but not least, about the drivetrain, the Buick LeSabre is front-wheel drive. How does it feel to drive the Buick LeSabre? Well, it's very comfortable, and that is the cornerstone of Buick at this time. It's a big, comfy, floaty sedan. Now, it's not rear-wheel drive like the old yachts used to be, but that doesn't matter in a vehicle like this. This isn't for putting down stellar numbers. This car was used by an old lady. It was purchased off an old lady recently, and all she needed it for was to go to Publix and back down in Florida. She was a snowbird, so in the winters, she would go down there, and in the summer, she stayed up here, so that's why this car, although it is dirty from salt, is actually very clean. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have some classic GM gauges. Off to the left is my tachometer, as well as my trip and information. In the center is my speedometer, and off to the right, I have my fuel and coolant temperature. On the steering wheel, on the left, we have our Seek band and scan, and off to the right we have source, mute, and volume, as well as we have cruise control down at the bottom. Off to the left we have buttons for our information screen, as well as a climate control vent, our Twilight exterior and interior light switches. This is basically the Twilight Sentinel from the Cadillac products. Some nice wood trim, and moving out of the door we have lock and unlock, power mirrors, and power windows, of which just the front two are auto. Moving into the center, we do get a radio and cassette player, as well as CD player. Loved seeing that mixed media, as well as 2 climate vents and the climate controls. Very clean, very simple. I love the look of this. Big, chunky plastic buttons. I love, love, love. Off to the right, we do get some more wood paneling, as well as the LeSabre Custom by Buick badge, in case you thought it was by anyone else. We do have a cigarette lighter and ashtray down below that, and we don't have any center console on the floor, but we do have an armrest with fold-out cup holders, so we will do a big friggin' bottle test, and unfortunately, yet pretty predictably, it fails the big friggin' bottle test. Wah, wah, wah. You get some storage in the center, however you can fold it up, and now this has created a bench seat. So this is technically a 6-passenger sedan, which is very cool and something we do not see anymore. The seats themselves are very comfortable. You slide into them, you sink into them, and on this chilly day, I want nothing more in my life. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so let's go do a back seat review. In the back of the Buick, and it is very comfy. Now, it's actually not as much space back here as I would have thought. My knees are almost touching the front seat. And when I hear full-size sedan, I always think, oh, there's going to be a swimming pool in the back seat. That's not really the case. However, I don't care because the back seat is so comfy. The seats just melt around you, and it's so luxurious, so nice. And just, you know, this era is so great. I'll talk about it extensively later on, but just the comfy cozy, it's like grandma's couch, you know? It smells like Newports mixed with mothballs, but it's nice. It's like a welcoming mothballs and Newport smell, if that makes sense. Or Winston's, if you will. I like it a lot. I don't actually get a center console. I do get a fold-down cup holder that's a sad excuse for a cup holder, but that's pretty much it. Let's hop into the very back. We'll take a quick look at the giant trunk, and then we'll talk about the looks. Right around the back of the Buick LeSabre, and we do have a trunk release button here on the key fob, and it opens it up. Oh, just kidding. Nope. All right, pull it up the rest of the way, and we do have our giant apartment-sized trunk. If you put this on Zillow, you could probably get about $1,500 a month for it. So very, very nice to see that. And this was a big part of American cars were big, big trunks. You could fit 10 sets of golf clubs back here if you really wanted to, and I'm sure people have. So very, very nice to see all of that. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and this is where you start to lose me. I don't think that this is a very outwardly pretty Buick. I don't think it was styled really well. It looks like they built the clay model for it. They designed these beautiful striking edges and lines and then said, hey, let's go get lunch. And they left the clay model out in the sun. And when they got back, they just sent it into production that way. It has a very melted soap bar kind of look, which was traditional for the late 90s and early 2000s, of which this vehicle came out of. But just aesthetically, I don't think I would have a poster of this up on my wall anytime soon. Although I know my friend Steven probably does. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving the 2005 Buick LeSabre? Well, I really, really love this car. First of all, right off the bat, it's comfy, cozy, old-style GM. Seeing that yellow and red line on the tachometer, the big chunky buttons for the climate controls, the hazy green information screens, all of this is just so GM. And to me, GM has always been the home team. They've been the Cubs. Ford is very corporate. They always have been, always probably will be. And what Jim Farley's doing with that company is great. It's making money. That's the White Sox. You know, the White Sox used to play at Guaranteed Rate Field. I mean, how business cubicle is that? The Cubs, although Wrigley Field is owned by Toyota, it's still Wrigley Field from the old Wrigley Gum Company. It's Wrigley. It's always going to be Wrigley. There's that passion there, and that's how I feel about these older GM products. They might not be the best, they might not sell the best, they might not be industry leaders, but they were always the home team. This car was built by cousins, by friends, by aunts, by uncles, and that just rings true throughout this. Now, I say sometimes they didn't sell the best. This actually sold stellar numbers. And when they canceled it, it was the best-selling full-size sedan in the US. I mean, they really quit while they were ahead, like Seinfeld, or like Jerry Seinfeld tries to tell you. GM got a little greedy. They got a little bit of green under their fingers and said, let's switch up the dialogue. And they switched to the Buick LeSabre, which is also a great car. I've driven two of them. I've done the Super and the non-Super. I like them. They're good. And the first year, they sold 90,000 of them. Insane numbers. But then the financial crisis hit, and no one wanted full-size luxury sedans anymore. So the LeSabre took the bullet that the LeSabre was supposed to take. And so now the LeSabre name has been preserved. It left on a high note. However, I also view the video that you're watching now as a somewhat sister video to one that I put out recently of the Buick Envision. The Buick Envision was interesting and special because it marked a turning point for Buick. They now only produce SUVs, and that was one of the first. That car was also built in China, where this was built in either Michigan or Michigan. They had the Lake Orion assembly plant, which they ended production of these in mid-2004 to work on the Pontiac G6, and then they had a plant just outside Detroit. This one came out of that Detroit facility because this is a January of 2005 vehicle. So actually, hey, it's exactly 20 years old now. But this was an American sedan built by Americans for Americans, and we loved it. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with the newer Buicks built overseas, but this was Buick at its full strength. This was Buick when that really meant something at the dinner table. Now, well, less so. So here it is, Buick LeSabre from 2005. Is it the prettiest? No. But was it the best? Yeah, it was. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Ted for letting me borrow his Buick LeSabre for today's video. Ted has been absolutely wonderful. I mention it in every video, but I truly have forgotten how many vehicles I've reviewed from Ted. He's a huge asset to the channel, a really good friend of mine, and I appreciate him very, very much. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, subscribe if you really liked it, and I'm gonna figure out how to make my hair not static to the roof of this car. If you have any tips, let me know. Take care, guys.